recording live from the Lucky Number 7 Lounge in the basement of Dine Drink Travel's world headquarters in the barren wastelands of far west Texas. This is Dine Drink Vegas, the podcast by and for everybody who's stuck at home but wishing they were in the land of neon lights and bad decisions. I'm your host, John, also known as the Baller on the Budget, and we welcome you to episode number 5, in which we're going to give you an update on what's new and noteworthy in Las Vegas, at least according to us, for June of 2023. And now, I'm ready to introduce the founder of Dine Drink Travel, the high roller of the high plains, the leader in the luxury lounge, the king of comps, the man who's always eagerly waiting on that limo to carry him away to the resort of his choice. It's Bill. Get in here, Bill.
Hey, John. How are you?
I'm doing much better now that we've gotten into the drink of the day. How are you?
I also have the drink of the day, but I suspect that as normal, I made mine better than you made yours.
And normally I would disagree with you, but today I actually think you edged me out. So, folks, today we are sipping on Moscow Mules. So the Moscow Mule is essentially a highball. So for those of you that are not super into cocktail terms, a highball is simply a spirit in a mixer. So if you think about Jack and Coke, rum and Coke, just blank and blank.
Can
right?
I think of something better than a Jack and Coke, though?
Well, whatever whiskey you want to roll with. By the way, what is your preferred whiskey to mix with Coke?
To not, because why would I take perfectly good whiskey and mix it with Coke?
So, yeah, because it's delicious, and the correct answer is Wild Turkey 101. It really is superb. Okay, so the Moscow Mule, as you might surmise, is going to be a mixture of vodka and ginger ale, or ginger beer in this case. And we are both drinking Q brand ginger beer because it actually has some flavor in it, unlike your grocery store ginger beers, and relatively low in sugar in the grand scheme of things. So let's talk about the variation. So I'll go first and admit that I made the inferior product. So mine, I did add some Angostura orange bitters to mine because I like bitters in my mules.
And I will spot you that, right? Like orange is good in everything,
Yeah.
and that little twist of citrus is going to work here.
Right, and technically highballs do not normally have bitters in them, but I do what I want. Also, I like a good dash of orange bitters anytime I mix rum or whiskey with Coke, by the way. But the rum for mine, so it is not a Moscow Mule, and I'm mad at Russia these days anyway, so I'm drinking Stolichnaya from Lithuania, but this is not normal Stolichnaya, it's lime-flavored vodka, and the reason I bought this is one of our local liquor stores has a massive clearance sale. They're deleting about 200 different bottlings from their inventory, and this bottle set me back an entire whopping $4. And I will say that I'm getting my money's worth. Like it's for $4, it is very much drinkable. I don't think I would pay whatever MSRP is for this, but at $4, yeah, it's not bad.
Yeah, I get it. With one exception, I just don't like flavored vodkas. Now, to be clear, I like to add flavor to my vodka, but that means, you pour a little vodka, you leave the base flavor in it. The only flavored vodka I've ever really enjoyed have been there are one or two decent cucumber vodkas. But that's not what this drink calls for. This drink calls for vodka, lime, and ginger beer.
Right.
Yeah.
And we both got a little bit of fresh lime in ours as well.
So can you notice how horrible the vodka is after you pour the ginger beer in on top of it?
No, actually, and it's not like you took a sip and you didn't say it was horrible. You said it was fine, which is your snooty way of saying, okay, it's horrible, but I'm not going to vomit. I've known you long enough. That is what you mean. It's, let me put it this way. I have paid big bucks for way worse mules at bars, not only in Vegas, but closer to home. So this is absolutely drinkable. It's not like I'm, sucking down McCormick over here.
Oh.
But yeah, it's not. I've also had better mules. But it'll do.
So my mule is exceptional. I made a Kiev mule because, again, I don't think Moscow should have invaded them. And I used Chefkoff vodka, which, while several multiples of what yours cost, is still, I don't know, about $25 a bottle, give or take, depending on exactly where you buy it and all of that. And it's just an exceptionally crisp, clear vodka, which has like some subtle undertones of vanilla to it that I like. Then I put in my ginger beer and squeeze in half a lime, and I have some dehydrated lime slices that I keep around the house just for the purpose of making cocktails, and that worked really well here. So it's got a good like undercurrent of lime. You can taste that lime is there, but it's like a hint. It's not a lime drink, which is what I'd be afraid of if you use a lime flavored vodka. It would be more lime forward than I would like. Like how dominant is the taste of lime in the drink you're enjoying?
It's actually not. The ginger beer is cutting through. Now, if you made this with like Canada Dry or Schweppes, yeah, the lime would be overwhelming. But because we're using a ginger beer that actually has a high percentage of actual ginger, no, the ginger is still absolutely the forward flavor. The aroma of lime, really, I'm getting more from the fresh lime I added than I am the lime flavor in the vodka. So it does work. I will say too, Chefkoff, when you and I became friends, I was pretty much of the Ron Swanson school that clear alcohols were for white women on diets. But you have convinced me, like, I will sip Chefkoff neat. Like, my only use for vodka in the past was if I was making a giant jug of party juice. I really did not enjoy vodka. You have absolutely converted me. Chefkoff is, I now have to have that in my bar at home. It is absolutely delightful as a sipping, neat beverage.
No, it is exceptional. Particularly their black label stuff is very, very good. I will tend to not just sip it neat. I will tend to put in like one ice cube and sometimes an orange twist if I'm doing that.
Right, and which is good. And by the way, I should say, because normally we tell you who invented the drinks and where. Well, there's a dispute on which bartender. But the Moscow Mule, as far as the internet knows, was invented in 1941 at a bar in Los Angeles called, I was waiting to catch Bill with a mouthful of beverage, too late, called the Cock and Bull Pub. So,
fortunately, I can read ahead on our sheet, and I knew what was coming because, again, I have also met you.
Yeah. So there you go. That's the Moscow Mule. All right. So we're going to jump into our news items. And we just sort of threw these together randomly. This is definitely not all of the news in Vegas. We'll tell you our sources for some of these because there are some great blogs out there and honestly, some podcasters that are better at this than us. But hey, it's only episode 5 and there's only like 3 of you listening anyway. So we're figuring it out as we go. So I think this is a great news story because I love the Plaza. And I think if I had to have a desert island casino, if you told me that I can go to Vegas 5 times a year for the rest of my life, but every time I have to stay at the exact same place, I think I might pick Plaza. I really like the place. So at Plaza...
So can I jump in and surprise you real quick? I'm not altogether sure that I wouldn't pick the same spot. And I don't know how well it works for you and me to be deserted on the same island forever and ever. And I generally like the Strip better than downtown, but I like the Plaza. It's a nice spot.
Yeah, I think the customer service there is amazing. The general manager, Jonathan Jossel, seems to be a really good person. I've never met him in person, but when I hang out in places, I like to talk to the staff. They all talk highly about him. By the way, they have a podcast on the corner of Main Street. Really great to listen to. So they're in the middle of adding several new things. Now, a couple of them have not opened yet. They're going to be opening on the 10th as soft openings, and then June 20th, I think everything has its official grand opening. So we're still waiting on Pink Box Donuts, which is good because the donut bar in downtown Vegas just closed the other day. So thank goodness Pink Box is opening because sometimes you need a donut early in the morning in Vegas. That and the upstairs outdoor patio for Oscars is going to open soon. But what is now open is Brian Christopher Slots and the Carousel Bar, both of which have had their soft openings. And they're both smoke-free, even though the Carousel Bar is outdoors. So, Bill, let's talk about smoke-free places in Vegas. What do you think?
I spend a lot of time in cigar bars in Vegas, so I get less excited about it. But sure, if I'm just sitting there nursing my drink while I'm playing some video poker or something, I don't want somebody hacking up a lung while smoking their 3rd pack of Marlboros of the day, right? Like, that's not pleasant. So I'm not sure that that's the choice I would have made for that space since it's outdoors, but I get it. And I get why they're going where they're going. I do wish, I mean, since it's downtown, one of the great lost opportunities is there's not really a place to sit and enjoy a cigar downtown, with the exception of the Chicago Brewing Company and the Four Queens. So I kind of wish they would have used that space differently, but I get it. And I also get that I'm in a minority in terms of what my preferences are in Vegas.
Well, and I think, yeah, there are places downtown where you theoretically could smoke a cigar. I mean, there's just not a lot of cigar lounges by name.
And that's also not what most of the smoke in downtown is.
That's true. It's also not marijuana either. A lot of tourists buy the CBD that's sold on the street that they think is marijuana, and it is not. It still smells like the floor of Willie Nelson's tour bus, so it's not a pleasant smell. But I do like watching people waste $50 on something that's basically grandma's oregano's. That's always entertaining.
Well, let's stay on this story for just a second longer before we move on. Why aren't there more convenient donut shops in Vegas? Like one or two Dunkin' Donuts I've passed by. You've got this Pink Box Donuts that are opening up. But yeah, of course you're going to have a market for donuts in Vegas because you wake up early in the morning, you're hurting, you need a quick rush of sugar, you need something to sustain you through the night when it's 1 a.m. or whatever. Why aren't there more donut places?
Yeah, I think that's a good question because on the Strip and downtown, you don't see a ton of that around, but there's a ton of other alternatives. On the Strip especially, almost every resort has a Starbucks or four, and Starbucks usually has some pastries out there.
That's a different thing though, because I get it. The pastries are nice, but I don't want a $7 shishi pastry for that particular niche. I want a greasy donut to power me through till I can find some real food.
Yeah, and I get that, and you would think there would be more of them, and I'm kind of surprised that Voodoo Donut hasn't found its way there. That's the Portland, Oregon chain that has a location in Austin, Texas, that you and I have both visited in rather sad states of condition.
I would argue they were glorious states of conditions. I do want to talk about one other thing, though, before we move on to another downtown news story, because somehow I got off on talking about cigars here. In one of our future episodes, I want to talk about my favorite cigar lounges in Vegas, because that is just an amazing sort of way to sit with your buddies and enjoy watching Vegas pass by, have a nice cocktail, whatever. I enjoyed that sort of a space. So we'll need to talk about that soon. But what else is going on downtown?
By the way, that is what we call a tease. And for radio amateurs, I like that you threw that in there. I'll also, for value-added content, Bill just did add 2 cigar bar reviews onto the YouTube channel, which I'm sure he'll remind you about when we do the YouTube update at the end of the episode. But yeah, I'm a Casa Fuente at the Forum Shops person.
There is amazing scenery in that store, yes.
Yes, yeah, they hire very talented staff, which I appreciate. I also think they do a really good job with the cocktail program there. And even though I'm a big whiskey drinker, I've gotten where I like an aged rum with a cigar, especially if I'm doing a lighter bodied cigar. I don't smoke as many big, heavy cigars as I used to. I like a Connecticut wrapper, that kind of thing, a more delicate cigar. So a well-aged rum, and they do that well there as well. Although I am excited about the smoke-free places because I don't smoke a lot of cigars. And some casinos you walk out and you just have that icky tobacco thing. And I don't want them to ban smoking in all Vegas casinos. I'm not that person. I get it. A lot of people who don't smoke at home will buy a pack of cigarettes when they're in Vegas. And hey, it's the great place to indulge yourself in things you don't normally do. That's kind of the point. But I do like that between Park MGM and now the Brian Christopher Zone and Plaza, I like that there's some smoke-free options when that's what I really want.
Well, and also because the level of smoke can become oppressive in some spots.
Not everybody's filtration system works as good. And then sometimes if there's a lot of people smoking, it really doesn't matter how good the air filter is. If you've got a packed weekend and it happens to be everybody's got a pack of Marlboros, yeah.
All right, well, what else is going on downtown, John?
So let's move on to this one. So May 27th was a big night for celebrity watching. So you had Mark Wahlberg, that's right, Marky Mark of Wahlburger fame. Apparently he also did some other stuff. Was slinging drinks at the Circus bar while Katy Perry soared overhead on the zip line in order to introduce her new Viva Vision show. Now, Viva Vision is the display up on the canopy downtown, and they now have a number of light shows that are based around different acts, musical acts, bands, whatever. They've got the Shakira, they've got a few others. The celebrities don't always show up to introduce theirs, but she did. Now, Left Shark from the Super Bowl was not there, but she was there with her dance squad. So, Bill, I'm just curious, how would your Vegas night be going if you looked up and Katy Perry was flying overhead?
So if I look up and Katy Perry is flying overhead, I just assume I've been walking too close to somebody who actually was smoking marijuana and I had misunderstood the situation. Like, it would be one of those moments. It would be kind of like when I saw LeBron James in the Aria. It took me 3 months to realize that's what had just happened there.
Oh, wow, yeah.
I think the same sort of thing would happen here.
Yeah, I don't think so. I've never seen a celebrity in Vegas in person. The closest I've been.
So when you're trying to go to places like the Casino Royale, John, less likely to bump into the celebrities.
Well, and we'll get to why that may not happen so much in the future. I will say the closest I've gotten is me and Mike were walking down the strip one night, and in front of Caesar's Palace there was a vlogger named Pompsy walking down the street doing a live feed with his then fiance, now wife Greta. And then I'll have to find the date. There's a point in the video where you can hear somebody yelling, "It's Pompsy!" And he stops to turn around, and you see my bald head in the background. So,
And
Pompsy, if you have nothing better to do than listen to this podcast, hey, that was me.
Anytime you distract people from looking at Greta to make them look at you, you're wrong.
Oh, okay, yeah, fair, but he's got her all the time. He only had to look at me for like 3 seconds. I think Pompsy will be okay.
Yeah, fair.
All right. So let's go out of order here. And actually, because I didn't put it on the run sheet, but you brought up Casino Royale. So now multiple sources, including Vital Vegas, who we reference a lot because if you want to know what's happening in Vegas, you got to follow Vital Vegas, report that deals are in the works potentially to close and sell off the Best Western and Casino Royale, home of $2 hot dogs and most of the homeless people that somehow found a quarter to gamble with, to put in a Ritz-Carlton. But there's also rumors that it won't be Ritz-Carlton, but it'll be the owners of Treasure Island looking at that space. So, Bill, one, which would you rather see? And two, are you going to emotionally recover from the loss of the Casino Royale?
I will still be experiencing joy from the demise of the Casino Royale for literally years after it's gone. Like, it breaks my brain to think about how is Vegas real estate being used to support the Casino Royale, because it's, well, for one thing, it's a 2-3 story hotel. It's a little bitty space. It's not an efficient use of that really nice real estate, and you can get something nicer in there. Now, in terms of what I want to replace it, I love the super high-end properties. I think there's enough of those. I think if you've got something else which is in the Treasure Island group, I think that's what I would really enjoy. I don't know that I need a super premium property. If I do need one, I'll just go to the Waldorf. Thank you very much. But sure, goodbye, Casino Royale. Don't let the door hit you in the butt on the way out.
I wonder if you would hate it so much if it was downtown, because I sort of feel like, for one thing, I don't hate Casino Royale. Oh, I make fun of it. But given how expensive the strip can be, I do like that there's a place that has some cheap food and that has some decent selection of games, although they got rid of table games. But in the same way that Circa almost feels like it ought to be on the strip instead of downtown, Casino Royale feels like maybe it ought to be downtown. I think you would look at it very differently if we could just magically teleport that structure to Fremont.
Perhaps, but even downtown isn't going to have a space that's, well, I take that back. The Golden Gate is a place which exists. They're not going to build a space.
Glorious place that exists.
Where, you know what, never mind. That's going to be for a different episode. Y'all, the rooms in the Golden Gate set up a little bit funny. John and I have a running joke, but this is a family show, so we won't make it right now. I still don't think even downtown it fits in because it's just not, it's not big enough to, I don't understand how, okay, so they're not paying rent. I'm sure they own the ground underneath them. But if they were paying any kind of rent, they wouldn't be able to afford it. and the ground underneath them is worth so much right now that there's no way that they can't sell it for more than whatever it is they're getting for running quarter slots. Like, it's the last place left on the strip where you can go to a quarter slot machine, only bet 3 quarters, and keep playing for a while.
Yeah, and get food for under $5. Get a hot dog and a
You
PBR.
can get food. You can get their hot dogs. It's not the same thing.
We'll just have to agree to disagree. I am not going to turn down a quality glizzy at a quality price. All right.
And you wouldn't be turning down a quality one there.
All right. So moving on. Several times in the last few episodes, we've talked about the A's relocating. We touched on Vital Vegas leaking the document that shows that staff at Tropicana are expected to close, and that is linked with the A's stadium. So, Bill, why don't you update us on Senate Bill 509 that Nevadans are debating? I don't know. I'm Texan. I mispronounce it. I think they say Nevada. I don't know.
So we are recording this on Monday, June the 5th of 2023. This is the last day of the Nevada legislative session. And as of a week ago, Vital Vegas and others were saying that Senate Bill 509, the one to provide, I think it's $380 million in financing for the A's, was a done deal. But as of tonight, it hasn't even been voted out of committee. And Senate Dine, the end of their session, is in, well, if it's 8 o'clock here, it's 6 o'clock in Nevada, is in like 6 hours. So I don't know practically how they get it done. I still expect it to happen. But yeah, I mean, it's become massively unpopular. 72% of Las Vegas locally saying 72% of Nevadans oppose it. I still expect that bill to go through. I also expect the A's to move regardless of whether the bill goes through. But there's so much about this move that just seems to have been poorly done. They announced they had a definitive agreement to buy land one place. Then they announced they were going to the Tropicana site. Then they announced that the Nevada legislature is still talking about it. Like this, somebody didn't think through all the ins and outs of this move.
Yeah, it's almost like sports franchises originally in Oakland aren't good at things. So
fair, but no, so for the money, I'm rooting for them to take the Tropicana site because directly on the strip, right there by several hotels I enjoyed, that is just perfect. And also, we live in the home of the A's AA affiliate, right?
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to get divorced because, okay, so I grew up a fan of Dallas sports. Then I married a girl from Houston, and she announced that we were now Astros fans, and I said, cool. But I think that if the A's actually move to Vegas, because I can get to Vegas more easily than I can get to Houston, and I live with their AA affiliate anyway, I think I become an A's fan, and I don't know what that does to the structure of my household.
I think that's, yeah, I'm with you there. I think the only place I disagree is rather than the Tropicana location, I still would like to see the stadium go in between the Rio and Caesars, partially because I didn't start going to Vegas until a little bit later on, and we'll do an episode down the road and talk about our first Vegas experiences. I never got to see the Rio when it was still the Rio. And I don't really want to go now because I've seen some videos online. It looks like a former shell of itself. At my age, I'm already a former shell of myself. I don't need a hotel that makes me as sad as the mirror does. So the idea of that going in there and revitalizing the Rio and maybe giving me a chance to back up and catch something I missed when the Rio was the hot spot, 15, 20 years ago, I think would be good. But either way, wherever they land, yeah, I think I would be a Las Vegas A's fan pretty easily.
Oh, yeah. No, absolutely. And I'll be curious to see where this actually settles. I keep refreshing my computer to see if the Nevada legislature has finished, voting on this. But I suspect that if their legislature works anything like the Texas legislature does, then the last few hours they're real busy with stuff, and this may not be the top of their priority list.
Yeah, I agree. All right, so we've got 2 more news stories before we update the YouTube channel. So this one's coming from a Facebook group, the How to Vegas Facebook group. So if you happen to be on Facebook and you want to, read people asking questions about Facebook and other people complaining that they asked questions and they should have Googled it, it's a great group. But somebody there posted a picture the other day letting us know that the Circus Circus food court, we're talking about Bill's favorite hotel on the Strip now, which already has a Popeyes, a Burger King, an Einstein Brothers Bagels, a Krispy Kreme donut. So there's another answer to the donut question. And a Pickup Sticks Chinese food is getting a Del Taco, and as every Texan would be happy to hear, a Dairy Queen. So Bill, does this change your mind now that they have Dairy Queen and a fresh coat of pink and white paint on the outside? Do you want to go to the Clown House now?
Somehow this makes me want to go there even less than I did before. So, folks, I don't think I've talked about this in a previous episode, but almost 20 years ago. Okay, so I have lived in Texas for almost 5 decades. I was born here. I intend to die here. The only time in my life when I haven't lived in Texas is when I've been abroad in the service of the United States. 2 of those years were in Mexico City. And I am familiar with what tacos should be, right? Like it is something, well, like I am a whatever it is, 6th generation Texan on most of the sides of my family. We've been here a minute. I'm familiar with what tacos should be. And Del Taco makes my soul cry a little bit. I don't want to go to a place which adds particularly poor fast food Mexican. Also, so I get it. Not every meal in Vegas can be upscale. Of course it can't. You can't afford that. You don't want it. But I don't understand the psychology of making a big trip like this. So to make a meal where you can choose between Einstein Brothers and the Del Taco and the Dairy Queen. Like, I don't know why that's a thing you would do.
Yeah, I agree. Now, I'm not as anti-Americanized fast food tacos as you are. They are not real tacos. And I get that, but Americanized fast food is what it is. And I will occasionally get in a mood where I need a Mexican pizza from Taco Bell or Doritos Loco Taco. I know it's not real Mexican food, but once in a while, it makes me happy. I've eaten at a Del Taco. It's not the worst thing ever. But if I'm going all the way to Las Vegas, yeah, like you said, I'm the baller on a budget. I want to economize on some meals. I do have a budget. There is nothing baller about this list of food options. This is like the food court at the mall in Carlsbad, New Mexico. Like, for real, where are you from that you're excited about these options?
So I do enjoy, let me be clear, I do enjoy food courts, and I know, of course, I can't spend whatever I want to in Vegas. But what a whole lot of hotels have are food courts with, let's say, a decent pizzeria, where somebody's like slinging pie right in front of you. You can see them toss the crust. They make it right there. You can get a nice piece of, a huge piece of whatever pizza you want for $5 to $8. And it's not that that's a cheap meal, but in Vegas now, if you can enjoy what you've eaten and still spend in the single digits, you should count yourself lucky. So what would fill that niche for me is like a really good pizzeria, or maybe like bring in some local guy with a sandwich shop, or given the end of the strip you're on, right? You're right there on the north end of the Las Vegas Strip. Why not just walk across the street and go to Tacos El Gordo?
Yeah, and I've got to agree with that. And you talk about, sandwich shops. Fashion Show Mall and Miracle Mile shops have Earl of Sandwich, which, I get that it's a chain, but I don't think it's a chain with a very big footprint. Most people that go to Vegas don't live near one. That's a food option on the Strip that makes sense, that's affordable. We live 5 hours from the nearest In-N-Out. So if I'm on the Link Promenade and I want a cheap, fast bite, yeah, I'll mess with In-N-Out Burger because I can't get that at home. So yeah, it's a chain, but
that's
there
because
are some
they're
low price.
Good at,
right.
In-N-Out Burger is fundamentally good at the thing they say they do.
Well,
they say they make hamburgers and they're good at making hamburgers. Del Taco says they make Mexican food and they don't.
Well, that's true. But I mean, even everything else in this food court, like, I love Popeyes. I'm not eating Popeyes in Vegas.
Yeah.
I'm not doing it. There's Crack Shack by Park MGM. Very similar menu, much better execution, and it's unique. The food there tastes different, and you can't get that in Texas. I'm kind of with you on that. None of these really excite me. Pickup Sticks, which is basically mall food court Chinese food. I love a good mall food court Chinese joint. But there are so many amazing Asian food options in Las Vegas. If you can't afford an Uber, catch a bus over to Chinatown. You'll stumble in to much better options than you're going to find there.
So y'all, if you're on that end of the strip, and that's kind of what you want is food courty type food, or you don't want to spend a lot of money, let me give you two choices. One, walk right across the street, go to Tacos El Gordo, stand in line for a little while, but much better tacos, really excellent food, go do that. Or if you want more choices than that, and it's the summer and you want air conditioning, then go into Resorts World and go into their food court area, which is going to cost a little bit more, but it's going to have so many better choices. But while we're up on the north end of the Las Vegas Strip, John, what's that you were telling me about the Wynn and the Fountainbleu and like staffing? It was some whole weird thing.
So this just broke today from Vital Vegas on Twitter, maybe about 20, 30 minutes before we started recording the podcast. The Wynn is set to sue Fountainbleu for quote unquote unethical resorting practices because according to Vital Vegas, Fountainbleu has been poaching some senior staff from the Wynn, and the Wynn is not happy about it. So, yeah, I guess, you know, when you think about those high-end casino jobs, especially some of them require you to be licensed for gaming in the state of Nevada, I would imagine that the competition for top-notch talent gets a little cutthroat. And I think it's fair to say that at least, I don't know about the Wynn now, but when it was owned by Steve Wynn, I think it's fair to say that they have a corporate history that's not free from controversy. And, you know, Wynn was known, among other things, as a guy that played hardball with his competitors. So what about this prospect of the Wynn, instead of, you know, throwing money to keep their people, going to court to what you've got to think is stopping people from taking better paying jobs?
So I want to confess to my ignorance, and I don't know what the specific accusations are. And of course, the Wynn should have their accusations heard. However, I can't imagine any world where the Wynn is ultimately successful in this, because you are allowed to leave any job you want at any time you want for any reason you want. And you're allowed to talk to people and you're allowed to recruit people to your own business. And that's just how things go. So hey, did you read any of the stories like what the allegedly unethical business practices were?
So I didn't have time because, you know, we wanted to make a drink and alcohol one. So I didn't have time to read the entire article that he put up. And I think at this point, nothing has actually been filed, so it's a little bit of rumor at this point. On the other hand, Scott at Vital Vegas has a really good track record of his rumors panning out. He likes to joke that if he reports it today, the Las Vegas Review-Journal will carry it as a breaking story in about 9 months. And he gets to make that joke because he's been right a lot. But yeah, those details at this point, if he posted them, I didn't see them because I was really, really, really in a hurry to get to the vodka.
Fair. Okay. But yeah, no, I don't see them winning that. The other story that I've been paying a lot of attention to is if you look past the strip, just off the strip, then there's a great big, like, giant ball. That is called the Sphere, and they've been building that for several years now. The cost of the Sphere, though, the construction costs have gone from $1.2 billion to $2.3 billion, so effectively doubling with lots of construction delays. It's still scheduled to be opened in September of this year, although it's not it hasn't been completed. And again, according to that New York Post article, so far the only group that they've scheduled to appear there is U2. So huge opening act. And I get that. If you're going to have a performance and entertainment space, U2 would be exactly who you'd want. And they've got like 10 dates. But you can't survive on a 10-day performance from anybody. And they're talking about bringing in other groups. Like they were talking to Fish. They were talking about other options. But you've had your construction costs double. You're going to pay a lot of money to your opening act. And then they have nobody else booked. And again, that seems like one of those Las Vegas construction projects that's kind of like the A's are shaping up to be. Really good idea, really poor execution. And somebody didn't think through everything before they pulled the trigger.
Well, the only thing that gives me pause is this is MSG, so the same group behind Madison Square Garden in New York. These are folks that I think have the juice to get acts in there, so they may be slow to the punch. But I've got to think they'll be able to get the bookings. But yeah, I don't claim to be an expert in this, and like fish is a big act. I get it. I am a Gen Xer, but do the kind of Gen Xers that listen to fish have the money to save a project of this magnitude? Like, everybody I know that was into fish still plays hacky sack in their late 40s, early 50s, and they play it really badly because they're in their early 50s. I just don't see fish being a financial driver. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe
Okay,
that following's there, but
that even furthers my point. You've got this huge facility, which I trust will actually be beautiful if it ever gets completed, and they can't book anybody to show up in it. Yeah. That's going to be a problem.
Now, they have talked about potentially showing movies in there, which I think is also kind of interesting.
So, and that would be a lovely night, but there's some upper limit to how much I'm going to pay to watch a movie, regardless of how cool the theater is.
But if you think about if they can sway this over, and by the way, a story I didn't include because I forgot to go back and find who broke the story and where it came from. Apparently, the aforementioned Wahlberg family, and I don't know if it was Donnie or Mark, one of them is trying to push, I think, Sony Studios, one of the movie studios, into opening a studio in Las Vegas to do more filmmaking in Nevada if the legislature will pass some incentives for them, and I don't know whether or not that passed. But if you think about a venue like that as a place to do movie premieres, I think there's some room there to make a little bit of money that way. But when we're talking about 1.2 to 2.3 billion with a B, yeah, I don't know. I feel like they are a long way from making their money back.
You know what? Good luck to them. I hope that works out, particularly because you've got this huge round ball of an indoor stadium there that's not good for much else. So I hope that works out.
You just like saying big round ball as many times as you can on this podcast. Okay.
I do what I can to be mature.
On that note, Bill, why don't you give us a rundown on what's new on the YouTube channel, and then we'll go ahead and stop boring our 5 listeners to death.
So we talked earlier in this episode about smoke-free spaces, and the reason that was weird for me, the last couple of videos up on my YouTube channel have been about cigar lounges, because those tend to be great places to go and to sit with your friends. And I think my new favorite spot in Vegas to just sit and have a drink is the Davidoff Cigar Bar outside the Fashion Place Mall, Fashion Show Mall, whatever it is, right there on the intersection with the Wynn and the Palazzo and with the Treasure Island. Beautiful space. It's both indoor and outdoor, covered outdoor space. You watch people go by. So look for those videos. The other thing is we're experimenting. We have on the YouTube channel been keeping our shorts and the full-length videos on the same channel. We are experimenting with a new channel called Dine Drink Vegas Shorts, because there's a lot of the short format content we do that I think is bringing in a different listener base, a different viewer base. So we're going to experiment with that for the next month or two and see if our viewers like having the shorts separated out into their own channel different from the full-length videos.
Okay, so now that we've talked about a giant ball and separating your shorts, I think it's time for us to shut it on down. We thank you so much for taking the time to listen to episode number 5. We'll be back in a couple of episodes with a couple of weeks with episode 6. I have no idea what it's going to be yet, but it's going to be at least as good as everything else we've done. So do with that what you will. In the meantime, make sure you follow us on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter at either Dine Drink Travel or at Dine Drink John. You can find us on Instagram, I believe.
At Dine Drink Travel.
And then you said you're playing around with China's favorite app, TikTok. Is that up and running yet?
It is. I'll be honest, I don't understand all of it.
Yeah, I don't know that anybody does, but ni hao to the new Chinese spies who will be eavesdropping on us. So, folks, that's it. Happy traveling, and we will catch you next time.
Y'all take care.